Welcome back to my channel. You are watching episode 2 of a 7-part series that explores the hidden ways that high achievers and entrepreneurs unknowingly hold themselves back, get stuck in self-doubt, even when things look successful from the outside. Across the series, I'm going to guide you through the deeper belief systems, those mental habits and emotional loops that disrupt momentum and erode confidence. And if you have been feeling energetically drained or stuck in procrastination or spinning your wheels, despite all your efforts, I just want you to know that you're not alone. Now, this can happen to the most driven and ambitious professionals. Now, I'm Iza Dabek, I'm the Self-Sabotage Specialist, and I help high achievers to stop second guessing and fast track their goals through the power of neural plasticity and subconscious rewiring. And let us dive into today's topic. I'm going to share information on something that often flies under the radar for entrepreneurs and professionals. And I'm talking about the victim mindset. Now, before you think that doesn't sound like me, hear me out, because what I'm about to share might surprise you. I'm going to explain exactly what it is in just a moment and break it down clearly so that you can actually check if it's happening in your life. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how it might be quietly shaping your business, your results, and the level of fulfillment that you're experiencing. And in my opinion, by the way, the victim mentality is one of the most deceptive forms of self-sabotage because it is so subtle and you might not even realize that it's influencing your decisions and how you feel. Because this mindset isn't always obvious. It doesn't always show up as that self-pity or the poor me energy that we associate with it. In fact, more often it hides behind what looks like logic, planning, and smart sounding reasons. And it can take over, like I said, even the most driven, self aware people can have this. It can sound like that strategic voice that justifies why you're not taking action. It's not the right time. I need more clarity. I just don't have the audience yet. It sounds reasonable, right? But underneath this justification is something deeper, this feeling of powerlessness, that sense of I can't, I don't know how, maybe nobody taught me, or I'm scared. And the more we say this to ourselves, the more it feels true and the more stuck we stay. So, what is the victim mindset really? To answer that, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, things don't seem to go your way? Like life is stacked against you or it's unfair and you are left picking up the pieces while others have it easier? You see that feeling? That quiet sense of injustice can lead to a thought loop that plays on repeat, and it can go something like, why does this always happen to me? They never support me. People always let me down. Nothing works out for me. I always suffer. Now, these beliefs belong to that victim mentality, and they're not always loud. They can be a subtle background track shaping how you see yourself and your possibilities. And these beliefs create the outcomes that we have. And the hardest part, like I said, you might not even realize it's happening until you start paying attention. Because this can run on autopilot and it can become so familiar that over time, these thoughts, they start to feel like who you are. Not just something that you're thinking, but it can become your identity. And yet, it's not really who you are because these are patterns that you have outgrown. And unless questioned, those patterns can start to define who you are. And like I said, they can become your identity if they haven't already. Now, at its core, the victimhood is the belief that life is happening to you and not for you. And when you're living from that place, it becomes easy to hand your power over. You stop seeing yourself as somebody who can actually create change. And this is that form of self-sabotage. Instead of taking action, you may be waiting, spinning the same old thoughts, waiting for timing to be right, for that clarity to somehow come, and just to arrive. So when someone has experienced repeated moments of powerlessness, overwhelm, or emotional pain, it's natural to start seeing life as something that happens to you, like something that you have to endure rather than something that you can shape. And that is something to start becoming aware of because it begins to feel like no matter what you do, you're always one step behind, or that someone or something else is to blame. Maybe the competition, the market, maybe your childhood, your previous boss, your previous business partner, or even just bad luck. So, this mindset convinces us that control lives outside of us and that we are just living through life rather than leading it. And even imposter syndrome, by the way, can be a subtle form of victim thinking. Who am I to lead this? Someone else could do it better. What if they find out I'm not enough? But the truth is, all of this keeps you from stepping into your leadership because real change never starts from the outside in. It always starts from within, with how you see yourself. So let's break down how the victim mindset actually shows up and how it impacts your business and progress. One of the first signs to look out for is blame. It can be towards others or even yourself. Now, when someone or something else is seen as the problem, it can feel easier, right? You avoid that discomfort of looking inwards or of taking that personal responsibility. But here's the catch, it also means giving away your power. Because if someone else is responsible for your feelings, your outcomes, or your reality, then they hold the power, not you. And blame creates heavy emotional residue, that anger, the hatred, and it can turn inward. You might criticize yourself for past decisions or obsess over what you did or didn't do, for that mistake you made years ago, that missed opportunity, for trusting the wrong person. And that inner blame can be just as paralyzing. And when blame stays unspoken, it turns into resentment. And it can be towards somebody from your past, your ex, your previous business partner. And that can feel heavy. It can really weigh someone down and just lingers in the body. It takes away energy. And yes, it blurs clarity. That is why it is so important to let out that unresolved pain, because if you don't, it anchors you to the past, to those moments, to those people, and it steals the strength that you need in the present. So I truly advise working on healing your past and releasing resentment so that it doesn't keep on affecting you. Now, victim thinking often shows up as justified frustration, disappointment, that chronic bitterness. And that's why it makes it so tricky because it feels so valid. Because, sure, it is valid to feel hurt when somebody betrays you. It is natural to be cautious after failure or feel discouraged when things don't go as planned. Now, these feelings are human, they are real. But when the story becomes your default lens, when it becomes how you interpret your life, it starts quietly shaping everything. Your decisions, your relationships, how you show up in your business, and how you see yourself. Now, another common sign of being stuck in victimhood is self-pity or wallowing in hopelessness. Feeling sorry for yourself a lot or believing that your situation can't change. And often it sounds like, I do everything and no one even sees me, or nobody appreciates how much I do, how much I give. It's that feeling like you are giving so much, but somehow you're still unseen, you're not valued, and all you want is to be acknowledged. There is also that sense of taking things personally or feeling targeted, like the world is against you, or perhaps you're always getting the short end of the stick, right? Another sign is chronic complaining. It's when someone frequently expresses dissatisfaction, is negative about work or life in general, and talks badly about others as well. So there can also be that pessimism, focusing more on what's wrong rather than on what's possible. Now, you may also notice excuses showing up, finding reasons why you can't move forward. Another sign is avoidance and procrastination. Even when you know something must change, you may hesitate and second guess and not do anything. So it feels like watching yourself from the outside, but feeling powerless to actually do anything about it. Now, as an entrepreneur or a business owner, this mindset can be especially destructive because there is that stagnation and it costs you momentum, okay? You may even start something with energy and motivation and then just abandon it halfway through, or that doubt creeps in about whether you can even make it happen. Now, all of this weakens your beliefs in your ability to lead, to create, and eventually you start losing the very thing that you're working so hard to build, that respect. Because when others see you stuck in hesitation or constantly needing help and reassurance, they start to question your leadership. And they may even mirror back the doubt and insecurity that you're projecting. So, why do we fall into this victim role? Why do we stay there? Strangely enough, the victim role comes with hidden payoffs. There is that sense of certainty and identity, giving us something predictable and grounding. I always get overlooked. I'm always alone. Nobody understands me. Now, these become filters through which you see the world, and you start living in alignment with those beliefs, choosing comfort over growth, familiarity over freedom. And that's what makes this mindset so attractive because it offers short-term relief, a reason for the pain, and someone to blame, or a tidy story that explains everything, even sympathy and attention and love from other people who might feel sorry for you. In reality, when we fall into the victim mindset, it's not because we are weak. It's because we're trying to protect ourselves. It's like a coping mechanism, a survival strategy that we learned a long time ago. It's a way of guarding against fear, past hurt, and the pain of trying for something so much and then being let down, disappointed, and it was painful. In a way, it becomes like a shield, keeping us from the risk of failure and disappointment. And yes, that shield can feel safe, but it also keeps us stuck. Because when nothing is risked, nothing really moves forward. Growth slows down, and deep down, you know you want to break through this. But it seems like you keep on going back to the default mode. And then this idea that you want to launch something gets postponed, or eventually those big goals that once lit you up start to feel out of reach. Now, when you get stuck in this way of thinking, your focus narrows into everything that feels unfair, that's wrong, or that seems impossible to change, okay? So instead of asking yourself, what can I change here? Or where do I still have control? It's like you are just staring at a locked door and just forgetting that there are other ways around or other paths that you can take. So you need to widen your vision. Now, most of the time, this happens without our awareness. And people stuck in this pattern often carry that unspoken belief of, I am not in control. Because if you're not in control, you're also not responsible. You don't have to try, you don't have to change, you don't have to take ownership. Because think about it from this way. If life is unfair, then why even try? If I always expect the worst, then I cannot be let down or disappointed again. If I don't put myself out there, then I cannot fail. So there is a strange, twisted kind of comfort to it. Because if you convince yourself that the odds are already stacked against you, taking responsibility or taking action starts to feel pointless, right? And it's tempting to let go of the effort. It is tempting to give up sometimes. After all, if nothing is going to change, then why try? That's the mindset. But here's the thing, staying in the victim loop doesn't provide safety. And that sense of protection is an illusion. Because what it does, it just keeps you stuck. It keeps you from growing, from creating. And most of all, it takes you further away from your true self. Because beneath the fear, beneath this self protection and hesitation, there is a strong, resilient, capable version of you. And you don't have to stay stuck in this survival mode to be safe. So let's do some self reflection now. Take a moment and ask yourself these questions. Just be honest with yourself, okay? I'm going to read them out loud now. Am I actively creating the life that I want? What story am I telling myself that is keeping me stuck? Where am I staying small just to avoid getting hurt or disappointment? Who am I still blaming? What am I afraid would happen if I stepped into my power? And what part of me is still afraid to be fully seen? And what would shift if I took full ownership of my life and my results? So you can pause the video, take out your journal, and see if you can ask these questions to yourself. Okay, so what is the way out of the victim mindset? It begins with awareness, noticing when your inner dialogue slips into why me, and then gently shifting it into what can I do now in this situation right now? And that moment changes everything. It's the first step towards reclaiming your role as the one steering your life, because that's where real power lives. And this is why your language and your thoughts really matter, because the words you speak, especially to yourself, set the tone for how you show up in the world. Every sentence you repeat becomes a thread in that story that you are living. So when that happens, pause and ask yourself, in the story that I'm telling right now, am I the victim or the hero? What role am I choosing right now? Because here's the truth. You can reshape the narrative. You can write a story that shows who you're becoming. And it starts with choosing words that reflect strength, possibility, ownership. Instead of saying, nothing ever changes in my life or I can't do this, why don't you just replace it and try saying, I am in control of my choices. I have the power to shift this. I am growing through this challenge. Because these aren't just affirmations, they are anchors. They retrain your internal voice to work with you and support you. And when you find yourself slipping back into those old patterns, use mindfulness to pause and reconnect with yourself. Meditate. Even the simplest tools like deep breathing practice, a moment in nature, stillness, that can give you space to observe before reacting, before giving into those patterns. Because that pause, that quiet space between your thoughts, that's where your clarity lies. So ask yourself truly honestly, do I want or am I ready to step out of the victim role? Do I want to? Am I ready to release the comfort, the protection of that validation that comes with it? Choosing empowerment doesn't mean denying your pain. It means not letting that pain define you. It means saying, yes, that hurt me in some way. I have feelings, they are valid, but it's not the whole of who I am. It doesn't define me, it doesn't shape me. And the journey out of victimhood isn't about one grand leap. It's a series of small conscious decisions, moments when you see that old story and then gently choose not to live with it anymore. So, once again, I really want to tell you and inspire you to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do right now? How can I change this? What's my power? Because imagine meeting challenges with curiosity instead of fear, leading with trust in yourself, creating from your strength, not your survival mode, and no longer waiting for that permission to take up space. Because remember, your story is not defined by what happened to you, but it's defined by how you rise. And every chapter is yours to write. So if you're stuck in that loop of self-doubt, overthinking, or self-sabotage, and you know that it's time to shift these patterns to step into clarity and confidence, I would love to support you. You are invited to book a clarity session with me. The link is in the description below. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And this series continues where we keep unpacking the hidden self-sabotaging patterns that affect even the most capable individuals. So keep watching. And if this resonates, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the tools, insights, and support I'm going to be sharing every week. So take care of yourself, be patient with your process, and I will see you in the next video.